how essential is movement?
You're not moving, you're dying. I mean, movement is a central aspect to everybody's life. And what's interesting, I think, is many people don't think about movement lost till the moment that it's required, whether for emergency or for enjoyment. It's like you don't know you can't lift things up until you're home alone and the couch tips over on your dog. And you're like, oh, I got to get Sparky out from under here. And you realize you can't. It's that moment. I always say, like, I used to be able to, is the battle cry of movement lost. I used to be able to do such and such, right? And most people don't know where they stand with how well they can move their body until it's too late, until there's pain or there's dysfunction.
You're listening to The Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. I'm Bruno Fallon. I've spent my 4-decade career in some of the most elite units in the United States Special Operations community, where I learned that elite operators aren't made overnight. They're forged through hardship, discipline, and relentless drive. In each episode, I sit down with the most accomplished and innovative leaders in special operations, industry, coaching, and athletes of all disciplines. Let's jump right in.
Hey, this is Bruno with The Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. We're back with you. We've got a special guest today, Rob Wilson, author of, the book is called Check Engine Light, and I've got it here, but let me give you my description of it. I tried to get through this speed reading to get ready for this podcast because a very good mutual friend of us has been telling me about it for months, and Rob was gracious enough to bring me a copy by. You can't rip through this book. This is like the human performance operator's manual, maintenance manual, and troubleshooting manual all in one. Very impressive. I don't know how long, and we'll get to there, how much work it took to get all this into one document. But Rob Wilson, welcome, and it is fucking awesome.
Thanks, Bruno. I really appreciate that. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about you and your background. Just let the audience know, how did you get to a point where you're writing such a complete document like this?
Well, the key is first that you drop out of college.
Got it.
So you drop out of college early because you hate what you're studying.
Right. And what was that?
I was studying foreign language. So
okay, I get that.
Yeah, I was a Russian studies major, but I actually really enjoyed language. I liked Russian studies, but it was like international business. And I was thinking, what am I going to do with this?
Right. Where am I going?
And so the Navy was after me to be an interpreter. And they were like, hey, you want to come translate for an admiral? And I was like, what does that entail? And they gave me the description of the job, and I was like, negative. That doesn't sound like a good time.
Right.
Or you can translate contracts for like a lawyer, an attorney's office. And I was like, also sounds like a suit job.
Right.
I'm not made for that. And so I bounced and did manual therapy. I went to massage therapy school first. I grew up in a house with like athletes, everything. My parents were competitive athletes. I was in gyms all the time.
So the tone was set.
The tone was set.
Gotcha.
I knew I wanted to be in the health and performance arena, and I went to trade school basically, and then was a massage therapist for about 15 years. My wife and I owned a CrossFit gym here in Virginia Beach for a long time, until 2020. We're old school, 2006 to 2020. And during that time, I had both like manual therapy and strength and conditioning in the building. I've traveled around teaching seminars on everything from like return to play, sports therapy, strength and conditioning, breath work for performance environments. I've been part of creating all kinds of curriculums.
You have the information you put there on breath work and breathing is probably, to me, honestly, the best package I've seen of all the different things you can do, because my exposure was, oh, here's box breathing. Oh, here's this. Oh, here's that. But you actually talk about a lot in there. And that was something I got stuck in and enjoyed reading. So sorry, continue.
No, that's okay. That's still a big passion of mine.
Yeah.
So got into that stuff. And then during all of that time, that's peak GWAT time period in VB, owning a gym and doing therapy. And if you own a CrossFit gym in Virginia Beach during GWAT, you get tons of team guys who are just beat up all the time. And I was outside the wire. So guys could be completely honest with me about what was going on. And I could help address the totality of the problems that were going on, because I didn't have to report to command staff. right?
Yeah, and just
Um,
not to interrupt you, but for folks listening and for all my prior operator guys, like the number one thing you try and do is stay in the game and stay in the business. So it's amazing. You hide your injuries, whether they are physical or mental. You just want to be a part of the team. You do anything you can to show up at duty. And then when you go to retire and get out, all the shit you hid, you're trying to get in your veterans claim. And it's like, well, okay, I guess I sunk myself,
Yeah.
but anyhow.
yeah, I'm going to set the clock for 9 months,
Right.
and get all these boxes checked.
Okay. So you're working with all these guys.
Working with all these guys, and I was part of another business where I was traveling, teaching seminars. I got out of that, and I had been friends with Alex Oliver, right, who's founder, owner of Virginia High Performance Continue Mission Program, and I had been mentoring the S&C staff for a while. And Alex was just a big fan of the way that I communicated with guys in the program. And I could kind of get guys to listen in terms of self-care. And I used this analogy of this check engine light, and we were talking. He was like, man, could you build this into a curriculum? And so I did. And the evolution of that curriculum informed really what became this book.
Yeah. It's that explains the structure of the book to me, because literally when I picked it up, it was like, obviously you're engaged with the community because of the way you developed it and how it takes you through. So first of all, Virginia High Performance, Alex Oliver, goes by Ollie, good mutual friend of ours. The Return to Duty program, and I'm getting ready to have Ollie on the podcast next week. It's amazing. I went through it. To be honest with you, I think it's something every active duty operator should go through that's coming off an injury and trying to get back in the game. And I think it's something every retiree should do within 5 years of getting out. To kind of recage the, hey, what if I let go, and get refocused?
Yep.
And then maybe again at the 10-year mark. I want to say I went through, I was probably out about 8 or 9 years retired, but still working as a government civilian. And I'm an athlete, and I train hard, and I am, human and mental performance are my thing. And I learned so much there. 4 weeks of eliminate the white noise. The structure, and I know he calls them modalities, the modalities of nutrition, performance, sleep, training twice a day with a strength and conditioning coach, that there's no cookie cutter programs. They're like, you go in there and they assess you.
Yep.
I went in there and they're like, okay, Bruno's an athlete. And what I was doing on the turf and in the gym was completely different than the other, 12 guys that were there with me. Nobody was doing the same thing.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. The crazy part was the proof was in the pudding. I was there 4 weeks. And in 4 weeks, I put on 4 pounds of muscle and took off like 6 pounds of fat. And to have that much of a transition in 4 weeks, and I wasn't fucking starving. I was going home tired and sleeping, but I'll tell you right now, it was amazing. And there's a few things that came out of that transitioned how I train moving forward and how I take care of my body. I mean, then the people that he brings in for Cheryl's been on this podcast, the nutritionist. So you were not teaching when I went through.
No, I wasn't there.
And when Ollie told me about you, I'm like, Ollie, I don't remember that block. So then I started asking guys that have been through, and they're all like, dude. So obviously when you get up and speak, they're listening. And then honestly, when you get the book, and I'll tell you right now, you guys know me. I don't plug anything unless it's worth looking at. If you're an operator, if you're in law enforcement, if you're an athlete, if you're somebody like me that is an athlete that's looking at longevity, this is really cool, because the way you broke it out, you can come in at any level. It's not designed to be like, you can't read this book and pick something out of it, and then you can't read this book and go to, like me, I tab stuff out and go to your section and be like, this is me.
Yep.
So when you designed it, was that the intent, like the operator's manual thought, or?
100%. Because one of the things that's not taken into consideration a lot, whether it's curriculum development or it's a book, is the way adult learners actually interact with information. And the most important thing to any adult learner, whether we're talking operators or not, is relevant. So grown-ups have limited time, and we learn by focusing specifically on a relevant subject for a given period of time, and then applying it immediately in the way that we need to. Now, this book you could read cover to cover, but you could also pick a section and go, what's the thing that I want to focus in on? Do I want to focus on my mind? Do I want to make my movement better? Or is it something that's sort of biochemical, nutrition type stuff? And focus in on that, and then do whatever assigned experiment there is in the book, because not everybody has time or is making time to sit down for 3 or 4 hours to read every book cover to cover, especially a health book where people just want to go, what is it that I can do to change me in the way that I need right now? So that was one of the things that took the longest with the book, actually. I had the curriculum down, but when you don't have access to the learner, like I do in class, like if it's me and a bunch of guys in class and I miss something or I don't quite cover what they need, well, that guy can walk up to me after class and be like, hey man, I got a me question. But if it's a reader, I'm never going to meet most of the readers who read my book.
Right.
So I had to kind of take that into consideration and go, okay, how can someone with very limited time find what matters most to them and then begin to take action? And that's what that was sort of a key North Star for me as I crafted the book.
Yeah, and just one thing I'll add to that for our community, and I can only speak for myself, but I know it's a big thing within our group. It's not just time, it's bandwidth. I'll give an example with me. I think I've only ever read in my entire life 2 fiction books. And I had a really, really smart guy on here, General Scott Miller, that opened my eye up to why it's good to occasionally read some fiction. But I'm always into history and I'm always into human performance. And to me, if I pick something up and I can't go to the part I want and it can't keep me engaged for 10 or 15 minutes, the book's going down and I'm going to go work out or I'm going to go eat or I'm going to go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think your structure of it lets you go via the table of contents right to you want to go and like, hey, today I'm going to try this type of breathing or I'm going to do this gauge. The thing I really want you to talk about too is how you develop some of like the, I don't know, self-critiquing performance tests. Like, hey, like, am I broken and why? And I mean, you have stuff in here that is like, it's a gauge of, are you doing this? This tells you something's wrong. I mean, how did you come up with that concept?
Well, first of all, if you're a human performance professional, then this kind of thinking is tacit to how you look at the world and how you work with people, right? So if you're a strength and conditioning professional or a dietitian or a physiotherapist, then what you get trained to do is look for markers that give you information so you can ask next questions. And then you're always going through these decision trees. And if you think about it, any domain expert does that in their domain of expertise, right? So if you're a firearms expert and you are teaching class at the range, a lot of what happens is that people who don't possess that expertise don't know what problems look like. So when you're an instructor of something or an expert, what you do is go, hey, that thing that's happening, that's actually the problem. And this is how we know it's a problem. And then once you know it's a problem and you're the shooter, for example, now you're going to be attuned to that problem. But if you don't know something's a problem, you're just going to do stuff. And that's what happens with most people in their bodies. Now, with operators in particular, operators or other tactical professionals, right? Fire, law enforcement, you're issued equipment and you're issued at least the beginning systems to operate and maintain that equipment. Now, over time, they'll evolve as you use that equipment yourself, but you're given like, this is a rifle. Here's how to do a basic function check. Well, no one's issued a function check for their body. And we just have this sort of assumption that things will work how they're supposed to because human beings are so adaptable, right? We'll cope around what we need to. And the highest performing human beings are the best copers, the best adapters, the best compensators, right? I will find a way to show up and get it done. The jobs select for that. And often that's good. The problem is long term, it creates blind spots that end up blowing up. And so in order to stay left of blast, you have to have monitoring systems in place, but the monitoring systems have to be cost effective. Like you said, if you don't have bandwidth to deal with like sophisticated technology or to develop crazy expertise, you need something that's valid and reliable and accessible. So you go, oh, when I spot this, it means I do that, or I need to keep looking, or I got to ask somebody who knows more. So those indicator lights, I call it the dashboard, right? The indicator lights that you have to make sense. Like if you're driving your car, you look at what a dashboard looks like in your car. It's simple.
Right.
It's not like you're getting engineering specs for the performance of every component of your car. It's the most important stuff so that you can keep operating the vehicle and know when extra help is necessary. And that's how, for most of us, that's what our dashboard should be. And so then I have different categories of indicators that are valid, reliable, and accessible.
And I want to come back to the indicators, but you nailed something there. So we talked earlier about how everybody tries to hide the injuries and shows up. The other thing I'll tell you is that nobody in our community starts addressing longevity, long-term injury until we're at that point where we're losing guys around us, things are happening, and that's way too late. I think there's awareness now that that people are starting to see performance-wise, how they train, nutritional-wise, and stuff like that, that you need to start it now. It's never too late to start, but you need to start it now. That's some things you talk about in there that you basically, the premise I saw was it really doesn't matter where you are. Here's where you need to be going now. And I do talk to the my generation guys, the guys that did 25, 30 years, have been out 5 or 10 years, and are maybe not foot on the gas. And you see them at VHP.
Mm-hmm.
You see them in the gyms and stuff like that. I mean, what would your message be, and correlate it to the book actually? Because I honestly think if guys hear me say I'm reading a book and it's helping me and it's helping me as an athlete and mentally, that they would be interested in how you got that.
Yeah. So I think, for me, I look at the sort of high performance mindset, and specifically if we're talking about special operations, whether we're talking about operators, right? Or just sort of elite performers more generally, the personality type that's attracted to and selected for in those environments is more likely to ignore pain and discomfort to continue competing or operating because it's necessary. I just read this really interesting research paper where they interviewed a handful of elite Greco-Roman wrestlers, Olympic caliber Greco-Roman. And they were discussing the culture of pain in elite Greco-Roman wrestling. And they said, nobody ever explicitly told them, compete in spite of your pain, but it's expected. That's the culture that they come from, because why? Greco-Roman wrestling is a combat sport. Its origin is fighting. If you can't ignore discomfort and pain and even push into it, you lose. If you're in real combat and you can't do it, you die. And so it's a necessary gear to have. I never, when talking to operators, downplay the necessity for that gear because it wins. So I always recognize that wins first, but it's not free. Performance is expensive. So what do we want? We want performance. I want the ability to execute no matter what when it matters. But I also want the skill set that helps me keep that for as long as possible. I call that performance longevity. And to me, when you're talking about an elite mindset like special operations or elite athletics, that speaks to the mindset. It's reconcilable. But if you say self-care, though, that doesn't match the culture.
No, nobody will listen.
Nobody listens
You're
because mission, service, and team come first. Me is self is the opposite of. But if you can say performance longevity, I can do my best at what I care about as long as possible. Now people are sitting up in the chair because it actually meshes with the culture. And so I start with that first, because if you can't reconcile human performance or health or self-care with the culture of the people you're talking to, then they won't find it relevant, meaningful. And so it won't matter what the science papers say because nobody's paying attention. But if you can say, I can help you be you better, I can help you be you longer. Oh, well, now we're having a real conversation.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And so I just was at a tactical games event. It's the Patriot Games down in Florida. And what I saw was interesting because you have this new culture of athlete. And the way I describe tactical games, and there is the tactical games, there's Patriot Games, there's Sawmill Showdown. We're involved in all of them. What I've noticed is it's CrossFit essentially meets 3-gun. But it's really 2-gun. I take that back. But it's interesting because you have people that can shoot, and then you have people that are athletes, and they're trying to meet in the middle. And the people that are getting on the podium are obviously training in both. But what I noticed when I was there was exactly what you're saying. The people that were getting out there, regardless of the environmental conditions, and pushing to a wall, the elite type person is that different culture. And then they're the person you could see that on their first reps or their first sets were done because they don't have the fucking mindset. I have said forever that you could line 10 operators in a room with 5 dudes you pick out a bar and ask somebody to pick the 10 operators, and they'll pick the 5 dudes based on looks because you can't judge the mind. The mindset is what makes the elite athlete, the elite operator. I believe in the diamond. I believe that mind is at the top. And then you talk about nutrition, rest, and conditioning. But how do you take a fucking guy or a gal that's an elite person and get them to willingly check the engine light and accept the fact that their performance has dropped, mental or physical? Like I understand your approach in telling them that, but how do you get them no shit in there to say, yeah, he's right?
So at least for me, in the way that I deal with athletes and performers that I work with, is I don't sell lies or ambiguities. Being able to predict performance outcomes is impossible. There's too many variables. Nobody can say, I did this specific thing, and so now I can guarantee that you'll win. If you watch your HRV, you'll win now. It don't work like that, man. I wish it did. There are just too many unseens. You don't know what's under the surface of a person, even if you could measure really well. So I don't guarantee athletes that if they do this, well, then life is easier and you'll win everything you ever try and you'll be the best. Because I can't promise that. It's not real. What I can promise is that whatever you can do, you'll do it longer. So I can't say, oh, if you do the steps or whatever that are in the check engine light book, you'll go win the gold medal if you were the silver medal. I don't know. What are the conditions on the day? What are you good at? What are they good at? There's too many variables. But what I can say is the conditions will be set so that you can keep playing the game longer. And all games eventually are a war of attrition.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Right. And so it's not just who wins, it's who's left. And that's what this book is about. A lot of performance books are written so that they can optimize you in some way that guarantees some outcome. And what happens is often people do those things thinking, if I do this, I'm going to be the winner. And nobody knows that. The best people in the world lose sometimes. I mean, in war, I've heard plenty of guys tell me that the best operators they knew got killed in a random event.
Yeah, it's
The most skilled guy. It's like there's no guarantees for that. So I don't sell guarantees or ambiguities. But what I do say is, if you do this, you'll be more aware of the costs of performance, and you can mitigate those costs so that you get a better return on your investment. That's what I can help do.
So when you were writing it, was there a particular section of it you got hung up on that took a long time, a lot of thought? Was there, I mean, because there's some really depth in there, is why I asked. Like, how long did it take you to compile all this?
3 years.
Okay. There's no question it's a work. I mean, like, when you look at it, this is not something you locked yourself in a room for 3 months. So 3 years explains it to me.
Well, I wrote the manuscript. So I wrote the first section as it is in a couple of weeks. It just kind of like shot out of me. Like I was ready to write that stuff. And then I had about 8 months where I was kind of touching it, but I was using what I had written to shop to publishers, and nothing was really biting yet. Then I got a publishing deal, and I wrote the rest of the book in about 4 or 5 months of dense, like everyday writing for hours and hours a day. And then the editorial process and the design process and the rewriting process is what took another 1.5 years. That rewrite and make sure that the concepts had through lines. And if I wrote an experiment in the back of the book, did it really reference what I talked about? So that was difficult. Probably the hardest thing was the movement chapter, which was kind of ironic because that's actually my background, is teaching movement. And I wrote this section on movement, and I wrote the entire chapter, and then I read it and I hated it. I mean, I wrote like 12,000 words.
Because that's your game.
Yeah,
so
and I trashed
you
it.
wanted it perfect.
I wanted it perfect. And I trashed the entire chapter. I was like, scratch this. And I started over and then pined over it. And then there were a couple components where I talk about biochemistry, like some of the aerobic stuff and the sleep, where it required a lot of research because I wanted to be precise. I didn't want to make claims, right? Because I'm not a research scientist, right? So I didn't want to make even a shaky claim in the book, and I wanted to whittle everything down to like, what's the brass tacks here? You know, what is actionable for most people under most conditions? So that rewriting and researching, that is the stuff that really took time in it.
Gotcha. So movement's
Yeah.
your passion. Let's talk about movement.
Yeah.
How, and this is obviously an open-ended question, and I know some of the answer, but not at your level. How does movement affect everybody daily? Like,
I mean,
how essential is movement?
You're not moving, you're dying. I mean, movement is a central aspect to everybody's life. And what's interesting, I think, is many people don't think about movement lost until it's asked for, till the moment that it's required, whether for emergency or for enjoyment. It's like you don't know you can't lift things up until you're home alone and the couch tips over on your dog. And you're like, oh, I got to get Sparky out from under here. And you realize, I can't. It's that moment. I always say, like, I used to be able to, is the battle cry of movement lost. I used to be able to do such and such, right? And most people don't know where they stand with how well they can move their body until it's too late, until there's pain or there's dysfunction. And that happens with, for sure, everyday folks, but it definitely happens in elite communities as well, because being elite at something means specialization is required. I've had to practice a specific set of skills over and over and over again. So, like, for example, in tactical communities, what happens? You guys turn yourselves into turrets for 20 years, right? You learn how to weld yourself to a rifle. It's real interesting when somebody who hasn't spent a lot of time behind a rifle holds one, how tired they get. And an operator, even somebody who might not be as like big and muscular, just knows how to weld themselves to a rifle so well and sort of like wrap their whole body around that rifle that they could stand there seemingly forever. And that's really important if your job is to hold a rifle up. But what happens is other layers of movement start to disappear. And so things like, man, I can't put my arms over my head very well without my hands going numb. Don't really know about it until that moment comes, right? And so having systems in place that let you know, am I losing movement? Do I at least have basic adaptable ranges of motion that are available so that I can do things that are outside of my specialty? If a surprise comes, can I deal with it?
Right. I think people that don't know what they're doing on a daily or weekly basis and are just plodding through life probably have no idea what we're talking about here. But I think the person that's wearing an Oura ring, a Garmin, a Fitbit, and is paying attention to their steps, I think the person that designs functional training and goes in a gym and realizes I can't do that anymore, or trains around a surgery or an injury and comes back, totally gets what you're talking about. But when you say movement to somebody that doesn't understand it in our language, I bet you they don't understand it. I think this audience does understand it. And our audience is largely law enforcement, it is largely military, and it is largely tactical athletes because of the topics we talk about. We're big into human performance, we're big into mindset and ethos, and then we do get some tactical stuff in here and former operators and athletes that they want to hear from. So with that platform, if you were going to talk to that type of audience, if you were going to say, folks, these are my top 3 things you should be addressing regardless of age, and I know movement's one of them, that's what brought me to this. What would you say to this audience that's listening that they, regardless of age, regardless of sport, what would you say should be like the gold they should walk away with from you?
From movement in particular or just in general?
Well, let's do both.
Yeah.
Let's do movement in particular because I think movement is huge. It's very understated.
Yeah.
But let's talk about movement and then we'll get to the other one.
So let's talk about 2 things with movement that I'll branch from. One is that if you are engaged in some formal exercise or strength and conditioning program, most of the time what people are focused on are measurements of output, right? So quantitative measure. What's my capacity? How much can I lift? How fit am I? How fast can I go? How much work can I do? And those things are important. But what they're not as aware of are qualitative. Can I move with efficiency and effectiveness and repeatability? Do I have enough range of motion? Can I move with tempo and rhythm? Do I have timing? Those kinds of things are actually most representative of athleticism. Capacity is essential because it's the ticket to the game. If you don't have capacity, you won't get to play the game. But to be good and an adaptable mover, rhythm, tempo, timing, coordination, those things are essential, but harder to measure. So we tend to ignore them. And what ends up happening is when those sort of qualitative things go away, we notice the outcomes, but we're not sure how to deal with it. So in the strength and conditioning environment, don't just focus on how much, how fast, right? Quantitative, but also, do I have rhythm, tempo, timing? Can I put things together in ways that keep me adaptable? And one of the biggest lost opportunities in the sort of strength and conditioning or the fitness environment is using that environment as an audit. So we go there to develop our capacity to perform, but we don't go in there with an awareness of what it is we're actually doing. And I have terms for this, right? This is task completion, right? And task completion is basically, I got the things done. I checked the boxes, reps and sets, time on a bike, whatever, right? I got it done. Or we have formal movement, and formal movement systems have standards. So when I have a standard for something, that means that I can compare, right? So what is the execution of this exercise? Am I doing it to a given standard? And if I can become aware of how that standard represents, for example, how well I'm moving in a squat, then week to week, I can assess my movement quality as well, right? So that's a big lost opportunity in the strength and conditioning environment, is using it as a place to gain awareness of movement capacity and quality. The other piece with movement is, do I have some regular monitoring system that's apart from any environment where I'll disconnect? Because we all know when you get to the gym, sometimes you just want to get in there and get it done. You just want to have your bro sesh.
Right.
Or if you're there with your buddy, you're like, man, I don't want to be last today. Or like, no, I'm not letting this dude, I'm putting 5 more pounds in this dude today or whatever, right? So it can be helpful to have some monitoring system apart from that environment. For the function check, right? I call it having a function check, right? And what I've used the most is like Sun Salutation from yoga. And when I teach guys who are in the check engine like class at VHP, this is what we talk about. Is like, Sun Salutation, do I really care if you do that specifically? I don't. But have something every day, some series of movements that you touch, where the only reason you're doing them is as a check-in. Do I know how this thing works? And I use the analogy of a function check, right? And of course, the classic thing that happens in my class is I come in on the movement day. I'm like, hey guys, all you guys know what a function check is, right? And everybody looks at me like I'm an asshole because I'm some civilian. Right. And of course, they all know what a function is. It's a stupid rhetorical question, right? And then I'm like, what are the steps? Right. And then it's like another eye roll, like, oh, this fucking guy. Right. Okay. Put the weapon on safe, charge the handle, pull the trigger, make sure that, the hammer is blah, blah, blah. And they go tell me the steps while they're all kind of like huffing and puffing through it. And I'm like, great. So you guys like got this down. It's like second nature. Right. And like, yeah, totally. I'm like, great. When do you do it? Do you do it like, or like, why do you do it? And they're like, well, you got to make sure that the basic functions of the rifle are occurring. I'm like, oh, do you do it when you're already down range or when you're already firing, when it's live? They're like, hell no. I'm like, when do you do it? You do it before and after every time you shoot. I'm like, oh, really? So you don't just wait and make sure, you don't just wait and cross your fingers and hope shit works right? They're like, nah. I'm like, what's your function check for your body? And then it's dead silence in the room. Like, because you don't fucking have one.
That's right.
You just assume that your stuff will work because it hasn't failed yet.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I offer Sun Salutation as a way to begin. And I give this to every athlete that I work with at some point. They do Sun Salutation so that they get in the habit of checking in. And I pick Sun Salutation because it's so easy. It's easy to learn. Doesn't take any time. You don't have to have special knowledge. There's no equipment. I do it when my coffee's brewing.
So where if people are like, I want to learn about this, where should they reference it?
I mean, the easiest place is to look in the book.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can YouTube it, but you'll get skinny yoga girls who are way more flexible than you demonstrating it. And you're like, I can't do that shit. And you'll click on. In the book, there's a graphic that walks through like the basic series of Sun Salutation. And the graphic is actually photographs of me that got turned into a graphic. And you'll realize like, oh, this is just like, looks normal. Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And the cool thing about this idea of like movement is, I have these different categories of indicators, right? Mind, movement, and matter. And movement is just one. and they cross over each other. It's not like your mind is like irrelevant when you're doing sun salutation. One of the biggest advantages that I found for me and for guys that I work with is that when they do sun salutation, one of the first things you'll notice is psychological friction to performing it. So if you, let's say you're doing sun salutation for a month and then you wake up one day and you're like, man, I don't want to, this is stupid. And you start, you go, hold on a second, man, I've been doing this for a month, no problem. Why am I in this headspace today? Why am I so resistant to doing this? Did I get enough sleep? Have I been in a shitty mood for 2 days? Man, my wife said yesterday I was kind of grumpy, and I was like, no, I'm not. Right? And so then it starts to give you this touch point of awareness where you catch problems early. And not all the problems that we need checkpoints for are physical. And some of them are psychological and emotional, and some are social. Right? And so driving awareness to those things early so we can course correct is the entire point.
Hey, this is Bruno, and you've been watching the Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our podcast, and thanks for watching. Now back to the podcast.
So let me ask you this. You got a guy that says, you know, I've got a couple of them. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing yoga. I'm not doing this particular thing. It's not me. And it's because, you know, they'll perceive it as a low T thing, but they don't understand. They don't understand the perception of what it's about. Is there another thing you would recommend in its place? Is there another, like, I'll give you my personal thing. I train every morning and I vary between strength, speed, conditioning, things like that. But it's funny. I'm one of those guys, and I've been training my whole life that I know what I want to train, but I end up training on how I warm up because I have I warm up as an athlete. I don't just go in and start training. And when I warm up, I'm like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to do what I plan on doing because I'm not firing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will move on to something else because I've been training for so long. I'll just change my intent. And usually, to be honest with you, it goes from, I am not moving heavy weight. I'm going into conditioning today. Because conditioning, I might not have the mobility and all that, but it'll help me warm up further, and I'll just work on speed or something like that. But any thoughts on something like that?
I think that's smart. Yeah. I mean, every day, you know, so all the best coaches that I know, the warm up is a living movement. All the best coaches I know are using the warm up as a movement. It's not just about like getting blood flowing. And I mean, you could get blood flowing and increase your heart rate in a lot of different ways, right? You could just walk in circles faster and faster and you'll get warm eventually, right? So that warm up time is about self-assessment, just like you were saying, right? So if I can choose a warm up that gives me good information, then it's helpful. Now, here's the problem. Most people aren't paying attention when they're warming up. They're doing a thing because they think they're supposed to do it. It's not relevant to them, and they don't know how to interpret the information they're getting. So then they just do some shit, and then after that, they do some other shit that they feel like they're supposed to do. They're not really keen to the interpretation. So what's the next decision? Now, because you have so much experience training, you know, okay, I need to do this. Okay, well, man, I can feel I'm a little bit slow today. My reaction time's not quite there. I'm not going to do heavy back squats like is in the book. I'm going to do some mobility work, and then I'm going to get on the bike or, you know, whatever.
100%,
right?
spot on. Like for me, so it's a compromise. And again, you know, almost 60, but to be able to go in and train with a 30-year-old operator and hang is always my objective. And the way I'm doing that now is, truthfully, I go to bed earlier. I wake up earlier. And the reason I wake up earlier is to accommodate an extensive warm up. You know, I'm one of those ones it's up 4:30 every morning. I am in the gym by 5:30, 5:15. And I have a 30 to 40 minute warm up period. And when I say warm up, I'm talking there's weight being moved, there's things being done, but I'm sweating.
Yeah.
And anybody that's ever watched an NFL team, an NHL team, or anybody that's in a, contact sport where speed and explosiveness are involved, those guys warm up that way. They're freaking soaked by the end of the warm up because it's game on when it's time to go. And that's what my training is intended to be. Because when I train, I don't train as an Olympic lifter. I train as an athlete, and I'm doing multiple movements at one time, and my body needs to be ready for it. And that warm up tells me what I'm doing for the day. And it absolutely tells me there are no back squats happening today.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's injury. Sometimes you wake up and I'm just sorry that it's, my term that I use is I'm not firing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I realize, why would I do them today if I'm not going to be explosive when I'm going to retry the warm up tomorrow? And if I'm explosive, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So that sort of idea is actually embodied with this concept of tuning, right? Which is in it's in the subtext of the book. And I talk about it explicitly at the end, but that's how we should be thinking about the way that we're dealing with bodies. I have a growing bugaboo with optimization, because for human beings, I don't think optimization that's not real. That's like an industrial manufacturing term where we have lots of controllables. But human beings, we're really complex. Things are shifting and changing and moving all the time. How much sleep did you get? Did you get enough calories yesterday? Are you a little dehydrated? Did you get in an argument with your wife? What is your injury history? There's all these things that are floating around continuously affecting each other. And so more than trying to optimize somebody for like a certain moment in time where everything is perfect, I like the idea of tuning, which means I can adjust and move the needles on the fly. I can make executive decisions about what's going on and what needs to be done and not be overly anchored to any specific plan. I can kind of know what the general plot is, and I have some guidelines that are built over experience, feeling what's happening. Now, some people are more sensitive to those cues over time because of training and mindset, but some people don't develop those skills well. And I think some of that is lack of exposure, but some is also because, at least in our culture, which is, it's informed by sport culture and industrial culture. So we're given protocols for things, right?
And Instagram.
Right. And Instagram. Here's this protocol, and then it's supposed to work for everybody all the time. Or if we look at the industrial sports complex, like collegiate athletics is like 60 athletes. Here's the thing that everyone's doing, fit into this mold or else. That doesn't really work the vast majority of the time. It definitely doesn't work in the special operations community, most in particular active duty, because things change constantly. That's day to day, sometimes hour to hour. What you thought you were going to be doing this afternoon is no longer what you'll be doing. So you can't have that kind of rote mechanistic thinking. Instead, I think what you have to have is this idea of tuning, which is I'm going to have this open-ended experiment with a general idea of my heading and be willing to adapt how I get there as long as I'm moving towards the general North Star. And I have come to find through experience and through research that experimentation is the way to develop the awareness that informs exactly what you're talking about, which is, well, I'm sensitive enough to these cues from my body and know when I'm not firing, and I have an adjustment to make. And then you sort of have plan A, B, C, D, and you can come in and go, okay, I'm warming up. I'm feeling good today. I got to bed early. I got 9 hours. Oh, I'm feeling myself today. We're going to move some weight and we're going to move it. We're going to go. And then some days you get up and you're like, oh shit, this week added up.
Right.
And you go, but it's not zeros or ones. I'm going to do something, but what am I going to, I'm going to get on the bike. I'm going to spend 30 minutes in cardio hell, right? Which is still touching the edge, which I think is important. You still got to run that blade over a strap. but in a way that doesn't further insult the system.
No, you're 100% right. The I'm not training today is very easy to do. Now, I will tell you, there are a lot of us that overtrain, that sometimes you reach that point and you look back and be like, dude, I haven't had a day off in 10 days. You absolutely don't need to be training that day, especially as you get older. But there's, even for me, rest days or even active rest days. Get up, get some movement and do a few things and get the body firing, so that when you come back after your rest day on Monday, it should be your hardest fucking day of the week. And that's just my theory. You know, the other thing, and I want you to touch on this, because the book actually, to me, is divided on it doesn't come out and say it, but there are two types of athletes in my mind. There is the athlete that is getting ready for an event, whether it's a football game on Sunday, whether it's a fucking track and field meet, whether it's an MMA fight, whether it's a tactical games event, you know, a month out. And then there's the guy and gal, and I'm specifically talking about military, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, that every day they put the uniform on, it's an unknown of what that day could hold. And you got to be ready for your full mission spectrum. And that's the one thing about being a firefighter, a SWAT or a police officer, and a military personnel, especially a special operator, is you don't get to decide, hey, on today, I'm not ready. It's fucking, you get called today and you better be able to perform the full span of your mission set. Whereas an athlete can be like, I don't play till Sunday.
That's right.
And oh, by the way, because it's a sport, I can't go. So I'm sitting out this Sunday. There is a huge difference.
Yeah. You know, so I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay. Because I have a growing issue with this reference to people in tactical fields being referred to as athletes. And I get the intention, which is like using modern strength and conditioning practices to develop athleticism. But there is a serious difference, which is the one you just outlined, and that is how much predictability. Athletes know the environment they're going to be in. They know the rules that they're going to face. They know when they're going to face them, and they have ample time to prepare for known demands. Now, that doesn't mean sport isn't complex. It is. Now, when you start talking about military, special operations, law enforcement, fire, emergency medical, there's more unknowns than knowns. And when there's more unknowns than knowns, what happens, in my view, is individuals in those fields often have a drive to be fit, but can go, well, either I train as hard as possible all the time, or I'm going to ride this shit out. That happens too. Not as much in special operations, but certainly in like fire law enforcement, right? They don't see, how can I fit this into this unpredictable schedule? When am I going to sleep? You know, I did some work with FDNY earlier this year. And in some of the boroughs of Manhattan, they're doing 6,000 to 8,000 calls for service a year.
Unbelievable.
Insane.
That is insane.
That is an insane ask for human beings.
Yes.
That's a lot. So some of those guys, literally, I would talk to them. They don't know when they will sleep and for how long. So if they don't have a flexible plan, like this tuning, like you and I were talking about, then it's going to feel like failure. But if you have like a no zeros mindset, right? Like Alex talks about, where maybe one day all you have time for is 15 minutes of sun salutation, or all you have time for is to get on the treadmill and walk. That might be all you got time for, but you still got something in, right? Maybe you did some kettlebell swings before you went and laid in bed. There's a lot of ways to be fluid with the approach. And I think in those kind of tactical environments, human performance professionals need to be thinking a lot more in terms of the complexity of the environment and have rules of thumb and heuristics that give them rapid decision making that reflects the way that the people in those environments work, right? So if you're in a special operations environment, with active duty guys, my opinion is if you try to treat it like collegiate strength and conditioning, you will fail. Not because the plan is bad per se, but because the environment is fundamentally different. You don't know what you're going to get day to day. So you have to be able to make fluid decisions on the fly, just like the people that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And it's once you start to get to know people in these disciplines, I'll give you 3 quick examples. If you're a military special operator, the one thing that you're going to be able to do that no other humans can do, except for maybe an elite backpack hunter like an Aaron Snyder, is go long distance under a heavy rucksack over terrain and have your back, your feet, and everything survive. It's just not something people do. If you're a firefighter, those suits that they wear with their containment system and everything, and going upstairs with all those tools and equipment, I don't care who you are. If you haven't trained in that stuff, you're going to feel like you're suffocating. It's a condition you get used to, and adaptability you train for. The fact that you don't know, like if you're deployed overseas and you're on a time-sensitive task force, or you're a firefighter and you're sitting in the station house, that at any minute that trigger can go, and you've got to be able to do the full spectrum of your mission is the difference to me. And that's why, I'm going to go back to the book. That's why I like to check your engine light, because to me, again, and I'm in the longevity athletic game right now, to me, when I read this, I'm like, how am I able to show up 3 years from now and perform the way I am now? And now, today I'm performing to standard, but I want to be able to, 3 years from now, as I age, as I'm more injured, have this same level of performance. Some of the things you came up with, and I'm really curious, is how the hell did you come up with some of these experiments? I mean, was it in the design of the book?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like craft the experiments for specifically what you were discussing? Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah. So in the book, one of the things that happens with fitness books a lot is they give you a concept and then a protocol is delivered. And I had a real issue with that, not because protocols are bad, but because I think they limit learning opportunities, especially for adults. And there's some pretty clear research that backs that up, that if you give a sleep protocol to an adult learner, the likelihood that they're going to continue to repeat it for a long period of time is low. Like, I think it's like a 70% attrition for a sleep protocol for a person after 30 days, right? But when you give an experiment where the person can select the protocol that they think will help them most, now we're looking at 90 days of 70% maintenance adherence, even 180 days, 365 days, where there were some experiments where they went back over a year later, and not only were the people who were exposed to the experiment still doing sleep interventions, but they had chosen their own new ones that they felt like would help them better.
That's awesome.
They'd taken ownership.
That's awesome.
Over their own process. And that's why I wanted to do experiments instead of go, here's 5 sleep hacks, because man, I don't know what works for you, Bruno.
Right.
I don't live your life, but if I give you an experiment to try, then you can figure it out. You can go, well, what are the things that I need to pay attention to while I adjust my sleep? And you go, okay, it helped. I chose these 3 things to measure. It helped 2, but 1 was left out. And the one that was left out was the most important to me. It doesn't mean this thing was bad, because nothing was promised. Right. All that was promised is that we try. And you go, well, I'm going to try something else. Oh, it helped the thing I like, another thing, but this other piece fell off. And you start to figure out what helps things that you care about and when. That's actually learning. Right. So before we got on today, you were talking about how you guys were just at the range. Well, when you go shoot, there's a 10 ring on a stationary target, right? And what do? You aim for the center of that, and you fire off a given number of rounds for a drill. And then you go, where'd I miss? Why do I think that happened? And you make an adjustment, and then you fire again. And you continue that process over and over until you can do it while you're standing still, until you can do it while you're on the run, until you can do it while you're tired, until you can do it while you haven't slept. And skilled people at shooting, it's not like they never miss. It's that if you miss, you know it faster and pick it up.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? That's skill.
You're exactly right. Dan Horn was on here and he said the words that were gold. You don't care about the hits, right? You only care about the misses. That's all that matters.
Exactly, because that's where you learn. You learn from misses. You don't learn from hits. So if I give you a protocol that's supposed to hit every time, what are you going to learn? How are you going to become sensitive to the information that lets you know, should I work out like this or not? Am I really tired or not? Well, the only way is to run an experiment where you fire and you go, well, that didn't work. What now? And if you're a strength coach, that's your job too. When I work with people and I write a day of exercise or a month of exercise, I don't know what's going to happen. There's a person, right? I might have this beautiful architect, I'm going to write these exercises. It's going to make them exactly as strong as I want. This just happened recently. I wrote out a beautiful program for this young professional grappler. And then he popped his knee. It was a complete freak thing. And what happened? We had to adjust. Nothing I had written helped. That was going to help him. I was like, well, that's a wash, right? And so everything is an experiment. Nobody knows with any health program or any exercise program what the outcome is truly going to be. You have to fire and see if it hits. And if it doesn't, or if it doesn't hit in the way you expected, then you go, well, what adjustment should I make? And then you do that process forever. That's actually what keeps people in the health game, right? So you've been training, you're into human performance for, I would guess, 40 years plus over 40 years, yes. Right? How many different things have you tinkered with and tried? Yeah. You couldn't even list them, right?
I can't. And the funny part is that the biggest thing I'm seeing is stuff that's coming back from 20 years ago, stuff that was always garbage. I mean, I can tell you right now, like there's some things that come out that are fads that I can see being an orthopedic surgeon's dream. I can see the biggest thing I have an issue with right now, just for what it's worth, is the supplement industry and some of the garbage that's out there, and how they try and hook everybody on it's the next greatest, best thing and blah, blah, blah. But no, you're exactly right. It's a vicious cycle. It depends on who you're listening to. There are so many people that are not accredited nutritionists, coaches, and trainers that are squawking out there that if you're taking advice or coaching or something, man, my number one thing is you need to vet it. You need to check their background. And obviously, like someone like you coming from Ollie, working with Virginia High Performance, that's why we're sitting here today.
Yeah.
I mean, I got it. You're not on this podcast because you're not a vetted soul that is out there that is proven.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Even if I'm vetted, right? And I've been around the community long enough to know that credibility is won in drops and lost in buckets. That's something that's for sure.
That is for sure.
In the special operations community, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. Nobody remembers the wins. Everybody remembers the fuck ups. That's a fact.
Yeah. But with that said, no matter how credible I seem or anybody else, if I don't know you, then I don't know you. And so what you want to do is have a way to make sense of your own experience. That's actually how you know if you've come across a good professional, not because they try to impose what they think. They don't have a square hole and try to fit your round peg into it. What they do is ask questions that help you make sense of what it is that you're doing. That's actually the role of an expert, to make sense of things. And with this book, because I can't scale myself but so much. And if I'm honest, I'm very picky at this point with who I would engage with directly. And so I'm like, okay, well, how can I get this good information to people and help them develop skill? It's through experimentation, through informed experimentation. How do I pick the things that I'm going to measure? So I talk about in the book KPIs, right? What's your key performance indicator? and to select some, not to be attached to them, but so you can have some way to measure your experience. Am I getting what I want out of this or not? And then to try some stuff. Now, there's a good term I just came across, which is the safe to fail experiment, which I really like, right? This is from like complexity, science, and business and stuff. But a safe to fail experiment is essentially, I can try something that if it doesn't work, the worst that will happen is that I'll learn.
Love it.
Right.
I got it. It's safe to fail.
It's safe to fail.
Give it a swing.
Exactly. So it's just like if you have a beginner marksman shoot paper, the risk is low. The worst thing that happens is you make a hole in the wrong spot. Right. And then you go, oh, well, let's make an adjustment. Now that we have a hole in the wrong place, now we can try to work it back until there's a hole in the right place. And that's how all skill works. And what I tried to do with all my work, but especially with this book, is to help the people who read it become skilled, not just do some stuff that Rob, the expert, says, but to learn how to think through their own performance problems.
So you don't work with everyday clients. So the thing I'd like to point out about the book is you're not going to have access to Rob, but you have access to the book. And by the way, the book is not gender specific. It's for every human being. It's designed for performance.
Yep.
And that's cool because I'm going to tell you, like, I've got listeners and I've got friends. There's so many female athletes. Matter of fact, some of our tactical ambassadors, some of the females we have are freaking animals that I'd put up against 90% of the millennial males right now. They're just physically strong,
dude,
badasses.
I'd put my mom against a lot of millennial males. I'm not even joking. My mom's still a beast.
I love it.
So a lot of my exposure to sports performance and health is from my mom first. Like, my mom competed in bodybuilding. She trained out of Flex Gym forever. She's done powerlifting. She's done obstacle course racing, marathons. Like, my mom still lifts heavy weights a lot. Here's a text. My mom is in her 60s. I get this. Most people are like, what kind of Easter basket should I get for everybody? This is my mom. What kind of mace do you use? I'm interested in getting, I want to try mace swings. What kind of mace do you recommend?
I love it.
So that's the environment that I came from. Yeah. So for sure, if you're an athlete, I don't care what gender you are.
Right.
If you want to perform better, or if you just want to perform better as a person, like, you can read this. Yeah.
So I think the forward is great when you read it. And I think some of the people that have written in it, if you're trying to get somebody interested in this book, where would you tell them to go first? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't even start with the forward. I looked through your table. I looked through your table of contents, and I went right to something that I know a lot about, because I felt if I could read this and I'm comfortable with this, the book's valid. And I did, and I was like, fuck, I'm reading this book. Okay. So
I'm just out of curiosity, what was that?
I went right to breathing.
You went right to movement?
Yeah. Movement and breathing to me are the two things. I honestly, I'm finding right now, I'm challenged, and somebody I train with is laughing at me right now after listening to this. I'm finding that my anaerobic threshold, all of it as with age, is the thing I'm most challenged with right now. When I get a lot of volume going, when I'm working, because I move, and when I get a lot of movement, my freaking ability to bring my breathing back down in conjunction with the moving is not what it used to be. So that's my number one focus here that I'm working on right now. But no, so I went there, I went movement, I went breathing, and then I went to your experiments, right? Because I was like bouncing around, but I'm like, this is good shit. Where would you tell somebody to go?
So if you're interested in the book, what I would do first is probably read the introduction, because it kind of tells you the why. The
story, the why.
Yes,
and I agree.
Story,
I went back and read that. It absolutely cleaned it up.
And it's like, okay, why should you care?
Right.
What do you want to expect? And the introduction, then I basically say, like, hey, there's different ways to read this book. Some people are front to back people no matter what. Right. They're going to start on page 1 and they're like good boys and girls, and they read it until they get to page 413.
I'm going to see if it's still in here. Yeah, look.
Nice.
Yeah, like I'm one of those tab guys. I tab the book out. I mean, because there's stuff I find. I call them gold, and it's kind of funny because a lot of the guys that I have a lot of dialogue with on a weekly basis about performance, we're exchanging ideas and all that stuff. And there were 3 or 4 things I came across in your book that I tabbed out, and then I actually took a screenshot of, and I'm like, first of all, you got to get this book. Second of all, read this.
Nice.
So kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. That's what as an author, that's what I hope for, is that the information and the way that it's presented strikes a chord with people. So they go, oh, and some of this stuff is like, I know that when it's said out loud, it's not like I'm reading some esoteric thing, right? It's just like, man, I just hadn't thought of this thing in quite that way. And it motivates action, right? And that's really what I want. But so you can read the introduction, and then you can kind of read, I kind of think of the book like a cheeseburger, right? So I have sort of the foundations of the ideas are like the buns, right? This is the beginning and the end. And those are sort of like the philosophical, like how to create a dashboard and the KPIs. Those are the sort of the general ideas. And then there's a 3-layer patty in the middle where you can decide which thing is most important to you: mind, movement, or matter.
Right.
And then if you at least read the beginning, you can go, okay, well, you know what? I'm most interested in movement. And I'm going to read the movement chapter, and you go, oh man, there's some stuff in here I'd like to try. How do I try it? Well, then you can go to the experiments, and those are divided the same way that the 3 layers, right? So the experiments are kind of like the cheese. And then you go, man, I really like the cheese on this layer. And then you can go try an experiment, and then not even read the rest of the book yet if you don't want to. You could just go right into taking action and then go, wow, man, that was 2 months of me trying movement stuff. What's in this mind section?
Right.
You definitely could bounce around and sort of study the book for a long time.
Well, and it's a good reference too. It's a good, what did I read? Let me go back and look at it. I can already see that right now. And again, that's why I tab stuff out, is like, I want to go back and look at this. It's not a one and done for me. And then again, some of the stuff I was reading, somebody I'm trying to coach or work with or something like that, I'll be like, this is exactly what I was trying to tell this person, but this is saying it right. So let me ask you this. Where can everybody find the book? Amazon, of course.
Yeah, Amazon.
If you don't know what Amazon is, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
I know,
right? We'll just call that what it is.
Yeah, if you can't get access to this podcast, it means you don't know how to use the internet.
Well, if you don't, I'm sorry, but in today's day and age, who doesn't have Amazon coming at least every couple of days, right? So
seriously, I have a book problem. There's like a book or two that show up every 3 or 4 days, and my wife's like, "How are you ever
gonna read these?
Gonna read all these?" I'm like, "It's fine
over time."
And I'm always like,
"We'll get there.
It's for work." You know,
gotcha. So 2 things. Number one, you know now who our tailored audience is. In your mind, with your background, your pearls of wisdom to anybody, not related to the book, but if you were going to tell anybody what's your pearls of wisdom to give everybody about human performance anywhere you want to go, what would you tell this audience? I'll start out and I'll let you think. Okay. So let me give you mine real quick, and then you can think about it and kind of understand the message I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So for me, again, everybody knows who our audience is. For you guys that are on active duty, guys and gals, I'm sorry. And I mean military, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders. You can't wait till tomorrow to fix your shit. If you're having a hard time buttoning your uniform, if you are not able to do your mission and you're hiding it, you need to either get the fuck out of that profession because you are in the profession of serving the community, or you need to get in shape. And the answer is get in shape, or that's what it needs to be. When I mean get in shape, I mean mind and body. I know that sounds hard ass, but anybody that knows me knows that if you're in that capacity, you should be able to perform the mission. If you've done the mission like me and you're done, my request to you is don't die and don't quit. Stay in some form or fashion, mind and body sharp, and think about longevity, because it fucking matters. It matters for you. It matters for your family. And if you just walk away from the mission and quit, I tell you, I go to reunions and I see guys that are my age that look 15 years older. Don't be that guy. So that's my message.
I love that. That's amazing. Let's see if I can follow that up with something useful. So one thing that I would say that I think is a bugaboo in these communities in general is asking for help. You guys and gals have a very specific skill set. It's an amazing one. I'm so in awe of people that do these professions and serve our country and our communities. If you don't have a skill set to solve these problems, then find someone who does. It's okay not to have the answers to these things. You are not issued a system for this. Everything else, this is why there's so much guilt in these communities, because, well, I don't have the answers. I'm used to having, oh, well, this kind of problem showed up. I know what to do here. I can fall back on training that I have. Well, if you can't button your uniform well anymore, right? Or you are getting banged up because of so much time in the job, who's offering the skill set to deal with it? So if you don't have the skill set, you should not be embarrassed to ask for help. What if a piece of equipment wasn't functioning properly that you use for the job and you didn't have the tools to fix it? Would you be embarrassed to go to the hardware store and ask for help to find the tools to fix that thing? Of course not. That's ridiculous. It shouldn't be any different for health and performance. If you don't have the tools, then find somebody that you trust to help you. This is this is my personal offer to this community. If you don't know where to go or how to find someone that's trustworthy, you can find me. That's not some empty podcast words. If you serve and you need help and you don't know where to go, you can call me and I will make sure you get what you need. Now, does that mean I'm going to work with you one-on-one? It doesn't mean that. But I know a lot of people who help these communities, all of these communities, fire, LEO, medicine, and special operations. If you don't know who to trust to help you, I know those people.
I love it. That's a great message. And, we have the horrible amount of from mental health to suicide within these communities going on right now on a daily rate, and nobody wants to talk about it. And I think that's I think your message is actually more powerful, because the fitness, usually your peers will call you out, but the mental health and I can't get my body to do it anymore, but it looks like I can. That's another one.
Yep.
So no, I love that. Any last thoughts, brother?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And, my parents are retired police officers. So I come from being around first responders and people in the military all the time. Thank you to everybody who serves communities, the country. I really appreciate it. This book is for you, but others may benefit.
Agreed. And it's something you could pass around the house. Rob, it's been a pleasure. We have a small tradition here because I come from military culture. You can't come on the podcast and not have my own coin. So thank you, sir. Glad to have you. Those only go out to podcast guests unless somebody finds my backpack. But again, everybody, it's Check Engine Light by Rob Wilson. I will tell you, to date, this is the only book I believe that I've endorsed on this podcast.
Nice.
So that ought to say something.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
I love it. I mean, I'm keeping it as a reference. I'm looking at it. It's in my backpack for travel. I find myself on airplanes all the time, and that's where I'm able to get after it. And I actually do like the experiments. I like getting in the gym and all that kind of stuff. For everybody listening to the podcast, if you have any questions, you can reach out through us too, and we'll get you connected. But we appreciate you listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. And thank you for joining us today. Have a good day. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us at Born Primitive Tactical. I'll see you next time.